The myth of social skills. For the longest time, I lived my life as a ghost in the machine. I wasn't just quiet, I was invisible. My entire childhood and adolescence were defined by a paralyzing introversion that made the simplest human interaction feel like climbing a mountain without a rope. I had zero friends, no social circle, and the thought of starting a conversation with a stranger felt like a death sentence. I watched from the sidelines as everyone else seemed to have received a social manual at birth that I somehow missed. I was the person standing in the corner at every gathering, clutching a drink, praying no one would look at me, yet desperately wishing someone would actually see me. Driven by a mix of loneliness and frustration, I decided to fix myself. I did exactly what every self help guru tells you to do. I bought the Bibbles of social interaction, like how to win friends and influence people. I spent thousands of hours binging YouTube videos on body language, alpha eye contact, and conversation starters. I tried every trick in the book. I'd repeat people's names 3 times in the first minute of meeting them. I'd force myself to maintain unblinking eye contact until it felt aggressive, and I'd memorize hook questions to keep people talking. But do you know what happened? Absolutely nothing. If anything, I became even more awkward. I wasn't a charismatic person. I was a robot performing a script, and people could sense the fake on me from a mile away. The turning point didn't come from a self help book. It came when I stopped looking for hacks and started studying the hard science of human behavior and psychology. After specializing in how the human mind actually processes social cues, I had a massive realization. 99% of popular social advice is total nonsense. It focuses on the symptoms rather than the cause. You see, charisma isn't a performance you put on, it's a psychological state you inhabit. When you try to act charismatic using superficial tricks, you create a cognitive load that makes you appear tense, untrustworthy, and weird. People don't connect with your eye contact or your rehearsed stories. They connect with the internal energy you project. I finally discovered that real charisma isn't about being the loudest person in the room or knowing the perfect witty comeback. It's actually much simpler than that, and it's accessible to anyone, even a former ghost like me. True, magnetic charisma is built on 3 specific psychological pillars: presence, warmth, and power. When you master these, you don't need a script. You don't need to try to be liked. You stop being the person who follows the conversation and start being the person who defines the room. Once I understood how to balance these 3 elements, my life transformed overnight, and yours will too. This isn't about changing who you are. It's about removing the psychological barriers that keep your natural influence locked away. Presence, the art of focus. Presence is the foundational pillar of charisma, yet it is the one most people get completely wrong because they think it's about being seen. In reality, true presence is about how you see others. To understand the raw power of this, we have to look back at one of the most famous social experiments in history. In 1886, 2 titans of British politics, William Gladstone and Benjamin Disraeli, were locked in a fierce election for prime minister. A young journalist happened to dine with both men on consecutive nights, and her observation perfectly captures the essence of charisma. After dining with Gladstone, she remarked that she left the table thinking he was the cleverest person in all of England. But after dining with Disraeli, she said she left the table feeling as though she was the cleverest person in all of England. Can you guess who won the election? It was Disraeli. He didn't win by proving his brilliance, he won by reflecting hers. The first hard rule you need to swallow is that presence is the selfless act of making the other person feel like they are the only person in the room. Most people approach a conversation like a waiting room. They aren't actually listening to you, they are just waiting for their turn to speak. While you are talking, they are frantically scanning their brain for a funny story, a clever comeback, or a way to pivot the topic back to themselves. You can see it in their eyes. They look glazed over, or they're scanning the room for someone better to talk to. This is a charisma killer. When you do this, you are sending a loud, clear signal that your own thoughts are more important than the human being standing right in front of you. You might think you're being smart by preparing your next sentence, but you're actually destroying the connection before it even starts. To master the art of focus, you have to stop performing and start being. This means you must commit to a radical level of listening where your only job is to absorb what the other person is saying. It sounds simple, but in our hyper distracted world, it is a superpower. When you truly listen, not just to the words, but to the tone, the emotion, and the intent behind them, the other person feels a rare, almost intoxicating connection to you. They aren't used to being heard so deeply. By giving them your undivided attention, you are giving them the most valuable currency on earth: validation. You are telling them, without saying a word, that what they think and feel matters. This creates an immediate psychological bond because you are satisfying a core human hunger for significance. The beauty of this approach is that it takes all the pressure off you. You don't need to be a world class storyteller or a master of wit. If you are fully present, the conversation will naturally take care of itself. You won't have to think about what to say because your responses will be a natural reaction to what you just heard. This is how you provide massive value without actually doing anything. When people walk away from a conversation with you feeling smarter, funnier, and more interesting, they won't remember exactly what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. They will start seeking you out in crowds and choosing you for opportunities because you've become a rare source of genuine human connection. You aren't just another person talking. You are a mirror that makes them look like the best version of themselves. 2. Physical comfort, the foundation. Physical comfort is the invisible force field of charisma. You can have the most brilliant thoughts and the most charming smile, but if your body is stiff, your charisma is dead on arrival. Most of us have been conditioned to be polite in a way that actually makes us appear robotic and untrustworthy. We stand with our shoulders hunched, our hands shoved awkwardly in our pockets, or our arms crossed tightly over our chests, trying to look composed. But what we're actually doing is broadcasting a loud, high frequency signal of anxiety. When you are physically uncomfortable, your brain is occupied with performance monitoring. You're constantly checking if you're standing right, if you're smiling too much, or if your posture looks alpha. This internal tension leaks out of your pores as nervous energy. And because humans are evolutionarily wired to mirror the emotions of those around them, your tension becomes their tension. To be truly charismatic, you must master the art of being at home wherever you are. This starts with giving yourself radical permission to be a human being instead of a statue. If you feel a sneeze coming on, don't fight it until your face turns red. Just sneeze. If the chair you're sitting in is uncomfortable, don't suffer in silence. Shift your weight, lean back, or stretch your legs out. When you allow yourself to be spontaneous and physically relaxed, something incredible happens. You stop leaking that toxic nervous energy. You become a low anxiety presence. In a world where everyone is walking on eggshells and trying to look perfect, the person who is genuinely relaxed becomes the most magnetic person in the room. You aren't just taking up physical space, you are taking up emotional space. And that is the hallmark of a powerful personality. The most profound effect of your own comfort is the permission effect. When you act with the ease of someone sitting on their own couch at home, you unconsciously give everyone else in the room permission to do the same. Think about it. Have you ever been at a stiff formal event where everyone was whispering and then one person walked in, laughed loudly, and sat down comfortably? Immediately, the entire room breathed a sigh of relief. By being comfortable, you are taking the lead. You are setting the vibe for the interaction. If you are relaxed, the person you are talking to will feel their own heart rate slow down. They will stop worrying about their own awkwardness because they are caught up in your ease. You become a safe harbor in a sea of social anxiety. The secret to achieving this is to stop overthinking your individual limbs. If you spend your time wondering, what do I do with my hands? Or are my legs crossed correctly? You've already lost. Charisma doesn't live in specific gestures, it lives in the quality of your movement. You want to move with a sense of unconcerned fluidity. Imagine you are hanging out with your best friend or your brother, someone you've known for years. In those moments, you don't think about your posture, you just exist. That is the exact energy you need to bring into every room, whether it's a job interview or a first date. When you trust your body to just be, you project an aura of high status and self assurance that no body language hack could ever replicate. Stop trying to pose for the world and start living in it. When you are truly at ease, the room has no choice but to follow your lead. 3. Warmth, the 93% rule. Warmth is the emotional glue that turns a conversation into a connection. To understand why it's so powerful, you have to look at the 93% rule. Modern psychology and communication studies show that a staggering 93% of what we communicate has absolutely nothing to do with the words coming out of our mouths. Only a tiny 7% is verbal. The rest, the massive majority, is your vibe. It's the micro expressions in your eyes, the tone of your voice, and the subconscious energy you project. This is why you can meet someone who says all the right things, yet you walk away feeling uneasy or like they were hiding something. You can't fake warmth because humans have evolved for millions of years to be expert lie detectors. If you secretly dislike someone or feel superior to them, that energy will leak out through your body language, no matter how much you smile. This is exactly why people pleasers are often found exhausting or untrustworthy. They are performing kindness rather than feeling it, and people can sense the hypocrisy instantly. The secret to mastering genuine warmth isn't practicing a better smile in the mirror. It's a total shift in your internal mindset. To radiate true warmth, you must make a conscious decision to find a reason to genuinely like the person in front of you. Before you even start talking, assume they are a good person with a story worth hearing. Actively look for their best qualities. Maybe it's their sense of style, their work ethic, or just the fact that they're being brave enough to strike up a conversation. When you find that one thing you truly admire, your internal state shifts from judgment to appreciation. The moment you feel genuine warmth internally, your pupils dilate, your facial muscles relax, and your voice becomes more resonant. You don't have to try to look friendly anymore. You simply are friendly. This internal warmth radiates outward like heat from a fireplace, making the other person feel safe, seen, and valued without you having to say a single clever word. A huge part of being a warm, charismatic person is knowing how to give value without imposing it. Think of yourself as a source of light, not a salesman. If you have a piece of advice, a website that helped you, or a book recommendation that fits the conversation, share it freely. But here is the critical distinction. Once you give the information, let it go. Don't follow up 3 days later asking if they checked it out, and don't try to force them to see why you're right. When you impose your value, you're actually seeking validation for yourself, which feels needy and suffocating. When you give value and then walk away with no strings attached, you demonstrate a high status kindness that is incredibly rare. You are showing them that you care about their success, but you don't need their approval to feel good about yourself. This give and detach method is the fastest way to build massive social credit. Finally, you must realize that warmth is not the same as being a yes man. In fact, true warmth requires radical honesty. Many people think being charismatic means agreeing with everything the other person says, but that is the fastest way to become boring and forgettable. If someone asks if you like football and you find it incredibly dull, don't lie and say you love it. People are drawn to individuals with a backbone and a clear sense of self. The key is to be honest about your own tastes while remaining completely accepting of theirs. You can say, "Actually, I never really got into football, but I love how passionate people get about their teams. What is it about the game that hooks you?" This approach is a masterclass in charisma. You are being honest, you are maintaining your own identity, and you are pivoting back to their passion with genuine interest. You are disagreeing without being disagreeable. By accepting their opinion while holding your own, you create a dynamic, authentic connection that feels real rather than rehearsed. 4. Power, the red lines. Power is the final ingredient that transforms niceness into true magnetic charisma. If you only have presence and warmth, you run the risk of being seen as a people pleaser or a pushover, someone who is pleasant to be around but ultimately lacks weight. Power is the anchor. It's not about being a bully or dominating others. It is the quiet, unshakable sense of self worth and the courage to set firm boundaries. When you have power, you don't need to shout to be heard, and you don't need to perform to be respected. It is the internal realization that your time, your opinions, and your energy are valuable. This segment is about drawing the red lines that signal to the world that you are a person of substance who cannot be easily swayed or manipulated. The first step to claiming your power is to stop seeking approval. Most people are terrified of silence, so they fill every gap in a conversation with meaningless chatter, nervous laughter, or self deprecating jokes just to keep the other person smiling. This is a massive power leak. It shows that you are uncomfortable with yourself and desperate for the other person's validation. To stop this, you must learn to be comfortable with stillness. You don't need to sell yourself or beg for likes. When you stop talking just to fill the air, your words actually gain more value. People begin to listen more closely when you do speak because they realize you aren't just making noise, you're making a point. Approval seeking is a low status behavior. Power, on the other hand, comes from the ability to stand in your own truth without needing a round of applause from the room. Holding your ground is where your power becomes visible to others. It is defined by your principles and your ability to say no when those principles are tested. Whether it's a lifestyle choice, a professional boundary, or a deeply held belief, you must be willing to stand by it, even when it's inconvenient or unpopular. If you don't drink alcohol, for example, and someone pressures you at a party, a weak person might give in just to fit in. But a charismatic person simply says, "No, I don't drink," without feeling the need to over explain or apologize. There is an incredible amount of respect earned when you deliver a firm no. It signals that you have a red line that cannot be crossed. People might not always agree with your specific beliefs, but they will deeply respect the strength it takes to uphold them. A weak yes is forgotten instantly, but a strong no defines who you are as a leader. Finally, you must learn to command space. This is the physical manifestation of your internal power. People with low self esteem try to make themselves as small as possible. They tuck their chin, cross their legs tightly, and fidget with their hands. To project power, you must do the opposite. Take up the space you are entitled to. Sit with an open posture, move with slow and deliberate intention, and don't be afraid to let your presence be felt. This isn't about being aggressive, it's about being grounded. This also applies to how you handle the world around you. If you're at a restaurant and the service is objectively wrong, a nice guy will suffer in silence to avoid a scene, but a person of power will calmly and directly address the situation. You don't need to be rude or loud, you just need to be clear and firm. When your body language and your actions reflect this internal strength, you become a person that others naturally want to follow. You aren't just a friendly face in the crowd, you are a force to be reckoned with. The bottom line, At the end of the day, you have to realize that charisma is far more than just a social party trick or a way to get people to laugh at your jokes. It is a fundamental life changer and the ultimate career accelerator. In a world where everyone is technically qualified and everyone has the same degrees, the person who masters human connection is the one who gets promoted, the one who closes the deal, and the one who leads the team. This isn't about being fake or putting on a mask. It's about unlocking the most influential version of yourself. When you finally stop trying to act social and start living through the three pillars presence, warmth, and power, you stop chasing opportunities and start attracting them. You become the person people remember long after the meeting is over and the one they trust instinctively before you've even finished your pitch. When you successfully balance these three elements, something almost magical happens to your social circle. Because you are present, people feel truly seen and valued in a world that usually ignores them. Because you are warm, they feel safe and emotionally connected to you. And because you hold your power, they respect you as a person of substance and integrity. This combination creates a psychological magnetic pull that is nearly impossible to resist. People don't just like you in a casual way, they become addicted to your energy. They will seek you out because being around you makes them feel better about themselves. You become a rare source of high value energy in a sea of social anxiety and self interest. You aren't just participating in the world anymore, you are actively shaping the environment around you. Now, the information is in your hands, but the transformation only happens when you move from theory to action. Knowledge without application is just noise. I want you to go out today and test this in the real world. Start small. Be fully present with the cashier at the grocery store. Hold your ground on a small principle with a friend, or find a genuine reason to feel warmth toward a colleague you usually ignore. As you begin to apply these segments, you will notice the world literally shifting around you. People will start leaning in when you speak. Doors that were previously locked will begin to swing open, and the ghost you used to be will vanish entirely. This is your new reality. Take these tools, use them with intent, and watch how quickly your life transforms. Take care of yourselves and go show the world who you really are.